Hello, welcome to The Moment. This time I have two stories for you. The first is about a petition to save a local dam from being demolished, and the second story is about two brothers' plan to build a cycle hub and cafe next to the Watch House Museum in Tynemouth. But before I get to those stories, I want to talk about the latest with Northumberland development company Arch. Two of its directors have been suspended recently as part of an internal investigation which was initiated by Council leader Peter Jackson in May. According to the Chronicle, quote, Arch's chief executive, Jackie Kell, and director of finance, Paul Sarapok, are both understood to have been suspended. However, the reasons behind Ms. Kell and Mr. Sarapok's suspensions remain unclear. There is no suggestion Ms. Kell or Mr. Sarapok were involved in any wrongdoing. Now, the investigation itself is looking into what they call the company's previous transactions, and that's all that's been revealed at this time. But it is certainly interesting that this has happened. For those who are listening to this who don't know about Arch, I ran stories in previous episodes, namely the second ever episode I made, where I talked about Arch's plan to build on the site of where the County Hall building currently is, as the council planned to move into a brand new building in Ashington, which was also going to be built by Arch. And so on the County Hall site, they planned for a school, a shopping centre, and a development of 200 houses, and were set to carry out the plans despite over 1,000 people in Morpeth opposing them. And this opposition happened in March. This was when this whole thing started. Eventually, the government stepped in to investigate Arch, and one of the building contractors, the contractor who was going to be responsible for building those 200 houses, they pulled out of the project for unspecified reasons in April, and then people voted in the council elections in May for the Conservative Party, who said that they wanted to scrap Arch entirely, and that vote was pretty much a reaction and a response made by the people against Arch. So there's been a fair amount of controversy around the company over the last several months, and this recent result looks like it's going to be another mark of suspicion against them. So now let's turn to the first story. A petition has been set up to save Humford Dam in Bedlington from being demolished. The petition, created by Anne Patterson on Change.org, reads, quote, Northumberland River Trust proposed to demolish the dam on the River Blythe at Humford. We believe that the proposal should not go ahead. And some of the reasons that are listed for the opposition include, quote, generations of people have enjoyed the picturesque setting and peace of this area in Northumberland County Park. The dam has been there for over a century, and future generations have the right to enjoy the surroundings as we have done. Also, we believe this proposal would adversely affect the wildlife of the area. The process of destroying the dam would be an unwelcome intrusion into an environmentally important area, disturbing red squirrels, bats and otters. We challenge the assertion made by Peter Kerr, the Trust Director, that the proposal would improve the visual impact of the site. The dam itself serves as a visual highlight of the walk from Humford Mill along the river. To take this away would clearly destroy the outstanding feature and therefore distract from the appeal of the site. Furthermore, Bedlington is undoubtedly an area of diminishing heritage assets, and we strongly object to yet another threat to our history. So there's just a few of the reasons the petitioners have for wanting the dam to stay. But one of their other points is, I think, more interesting because it looks into the reason why the dam is being considered for demolition in the first place. It reads, quote, We refute the claim made by Northumberland Rivers Trust that the dam poses a significant barrier, a major impact, to migrating fish and eels, and we would like to suggest that improvements to the existing fish pass and a stronger, more robust eel pass would take care of any problems that may occur along these lines and would be a better solution than demolishing the dam itself. So this is really the reason why the demolition has been proposed in the first place because of the impact that it apparently has. The Newspost leader ran a story briefly outlining how these residents in Bedlington found out about the plan. It reads, quote, "Concerns over the future of Humford Dam on the River Blythe were raised by the group at a council meeting after a document from the Northumberland Rivers Trust was leaked to them in April. Although it said consultation would take place, the document said some indicative Environment Agency funding has been allocated for the summer of 2017 for potential works to remove the significant concrete weir. According to the organisation, the dam disrupts the migration of the endangered European eel, trout, sea trout, and possibly salmon." It looks, however, at least from what I've seen, like the future of the dam was in question as far back as 2015. The Wild Trout Trust, who are a conservation group in the UK, have been involved in surveying waterways in the UK. And a page on their website reads, quote, "Survey results for the River Pont and Blythe system in Northumberland have shown many areas hold lower densities of fish and invertebrates than should be expected. Many areas fail to meet standards set under the Water Framework Directive, or WFD. It then goes on to say, quote, "The walkover surveys revealed that much of the catchment is subject to significant straightening and dredging, which has left the channel over deep and lacking in natural bed substrate. Other significant issues encountered include excessive sedimentation of the watercourse and barriers to fish migration, with two significant barriers towards the lower end of the catchment, limiting the upstream migration of both resident and migratory fish." The Wild Trout Trust went on to make what they called a project proposal, which was dated the 28th of September 2015, which talks about potential solutions to the problems highlighted by that initial survey. In the section titled Background and Rationale, the report reads, quote, "The river section between Humford Weir and Humford Stepping Stones is relatively straight, steep gradient with a lack of in-channel structure, so high spate flows, which I'll just say now means fast-flowing water, appear to wash out much of the finer substrate." It then goes on to say, "Areas of bedrock and compacted substrate further reduce the potential for bed scour in many places. This leaves a relatively uniform channel that is over wide for the low summer flows it receives, and means that good holding water for fish, particularly trout and grayling, is in short supply. Humford Dam poses another major issue in this reach, seriously interrupting fish passage and sediment transportation. Plans are afoot to look into the feasibility of removing the dam and increase structure within the river channel, which would help retain some of the beneficial gravel and cobble material currently trapped upstream and greatly enhance the gravel-starved section downstream." So that's the situation in the River Blythe as described by the Wild Trout Trust. They then go on to talk about proposed measures to deal with the issues. They say, quote, "The primary issues on this section of river are the uniform channel width and lack of variable bed structure and associated cover. The first proposal is to increase cover at strategic locations across the reach by hanging and laying trunks and branches of suitable trees into the margins. The idea of this, according to the Trust, is that the limbs laying across parts of the river would, quote, "enhance cover and fish-holding habitat and over time encourage disposition and retention of substrate in that area." They also say, quote, "An alternative method where greater intervention is required to reinstate active river erosional and dispositional features is to deploy tree kickers. Kickers offer an excellent way to rapidly increase the level of in-channel structure and create semi-natural pinch points that focus flow and closely mimic the habitat provided by fallen trees already present in the reach. They can be employed to encourage gravel deposition and retention within the margin of straight uniform width channel sections, while promoting increased scour towards the centre of the channel that will help remove fine sediment from the bed. So from that it sounds as if this method deals with the majority of the concerns about the river that they have, and wouldn't require the Humford Dam to be demolished at all in order to achieve. As for the restriction to fish migration, the Northumberland River Trust has built fish and eel passes to help with their migration patterns around the dam, but unfortunately I can't find any recent documentation about how successful they've been in allowing fish to get around the dam. But this is definitely a story that will be interesting to see the development of as time progresses. So now let's move on to the final story. A decision is due to be made on plans to build a cycle hub and cafe at the Spanish Battery in Tynemouth. The building itself was devised by brothers Mark and Josh Boyle, who have a website explaining the idea behind the project. It reads, quote, "Back in 2010, Josh Boyle completed the coast-to-coast cycle route. Josh was disappointed that there wasn't a real finishing line, where he could meet friends and family to mark his achievement." So that was the impetus for them to build a cafe near the Tynemouth Watch Museum. And the website continues talking about the design and what the brothers hope to achieve with it. Quote, "The hub will provide residents of Tynemouth and the surrounding area with an impressive leisure facility. We will use contemporary techniques to create a building that will merge with existing structures, enhancing the area and creating a manicured garden in front of the watch house." It's clear that they want the view from the Watch House Museum to remain unspoiled, which is why the hub, according to the artist's impressions, will be built into the hill so that the roof of it is the aforementioned manicured garden. The site also mentions the services that the brothers would like to implement into the hub. Specifically for cyclists, there would be, quote, 50 plus bicycle stands, 2 service points, changing and showering facilities, bike hire, a collection and drop-off point for riders, a temporary minor servicing bay, apparel and clothing line, and information for all cycle-related activities in the northeast in order to promote sustainable transport and other local authority initiatives, as well as an integrated multimedia and big-screen coast-to-coast finish line. But while the primary focus is on cyclists and providing a space for them, the hub is not solely for them, and families would also be able to make use of this place as well. However, this plan has come under some fire from the local community. A petition has been created on 38 Degrees to, quote, "Stop plans to build the Watch House Garden Cafe at the beautiful and historic Spanish Battery." The paragraph explaining the petition reads, quote, "The proposed plans are for a large licensed food and drink establishment and will include a function room. This will of course mean an inevitable increase in commercial traffic to allow for daily deliveries to the venue and regular waste collection." In the section below the paragraph, the petition continues, quote, "As a Tynemouth resident, I understand the importance of tourism and of boosting the economy in the area. Whilst we are more than happy to welcome visitors and share the beauty and tranquility of the area, some things need to be left untouched. There are over 25 places to go for a coffee and an abundance of food and drink establishments within an easy 5-minute walk of the proposed location. In order to proceed, the development relies upon the purchase and excavation of a large area of public open space currently owned by North Tyneside Council. The main building will take at least 10 months, with the closure to the public of the surrounding area. The construction project for this would be huge and have a rather negative effect on the environment. It would involve excavating to a depth of 6 metres over an area of 660 metres. This equates to a minimum of 4,000 metres cubed of earth. Concrete is one of the least environmentally sustainable materials, and the concrete required for this project is approximately 1,000 metres cubed. The author doesn't give any citations as to where he got those figures from, or how he knows what the build itself would involve, but the ecological aspect of the build is definitely something to think about, even though it would of course just be a one-time disruption. As for some of the other concerns, the Watch House Garden Facebook page seeks to make some clarifications. It reads, quote, "The main Spanish Battery area will remain untouched and open to visitors as normal. There are no public quiet places that currently exist that will be affected. This area is not a quiet place. 5,186 people pass the site over one weekend. Vehicular traffic will decrease. This is not a car hub. We will provide a community-focused development and gateway amenity for the thousands of people who visit the area every year. As the development does not have any elevation above ground level, views will remain intact. You will not be able to see the building from 95% of the Battery, only from the lower promenade on the Tyne." So that there was the position of Josh and Mark Boyle on the effects that the hub would have. It's clear that the disruption and the desire to conserve the space that already exists are definitely the focus of the negative community reaction to this. But it looks like the proposals are very much in line with trying to keep the area community focused, and it would provide cyclists somewhere specific to go, which the anti-construction petition doesn't even mention. But I will leave a link in the description to the Watch House Gardens website, which includes a lot of very good artist renditions of what the brothers hope the building will look like, to give you some idea of the visual impact that it will have on the area. The decision as to whether the plans can go ahead will be reached regardless on the 24th of August. And that's all for this episode. Be sure to join me in a fortnight's time for more from around Northumberland and Newcastle. Until then, I'm Oliver Ralph, and this is The Moment.